In my book, The Chimpanzee Me, I talk about not only my work with chimps over the last 15 years or so, but more importantly, what conservation efforts are going on to try and safeguard our nearest living relatives, and what it means to be a 21st century chimp. Now, in this book that was published a little over a year ago, I talked about the threat from diseases that can be passed from animals to human, or zoonotic diseases. And never in my wildest dreams did I ever consider this would be so relevant so quickly. I just want to read a small passage about zoonotic diseases to you. I've mentioned the problem with zoonotic diseases, or zoonoses, a few times, and they are an issue. But the international trade in commercial bushmeat turns a middle-sized problem into a global ticking time bomb. Have a quick think about some of the worst disease pandemics throughout modern history, and you'll soon see what the link is. The Black Death, or the Great Plague, arrived on fleas that hitched a ride on the back of black rats, and throughout the medieval period killed between 30 and 60% of the human population across Europe. Spanish flu, which broke out in 1918 and claimed the lives of up to an unbelievable 100 million people worldwide, originated from a virus found in pigs, we think. These historical horrors admittedly aren't all because of bushmeat, but they go to show just how serious zoonoses are. More recently, the global HIV outbreak evolved from something called SIV in non-human primates. In 2015, the World Health Organization put together a list of the top emerging diseases which are likely to cause severe outbreaks in the near future. It's a scary list in its own right, but what's really chilling is that all the diseases on this list are zoonotic and caused by what we call RNA viruses. This means the viruses are different to most typical cells you might encounter. Rather than store their genetic material in the more familiar DNA, these viruses use RNA instead. A major difference is that RNA viruses have a limited genetic code, which means they can't fend off genetic mutations in the same way DNA can. The result is that they mutate a lot. From the perspective of an evolutionary biologist, it's great because they can mutate and adapt to an ever-changing world. But from the perspective of someone who doesn't want to be in the middle of the next global pandemic, it's bloody scary because it means they can change hosts, develop new ways of transmission, increase their impact, are harder to kill, and so on and so on. Newly emerging zoonoses pose a massive threat to our deeply interconnected modern global community. These animal viruses can mutate and take hold of us, but if they happen to hook up with, for example, a flu virus, they can spread very rapidly indeed. Something like Ebola has a high mortality rate, up to 70% in some outbreaks, but is luckily relatively hard to pass on between people. Imagine if it mutated with something like a flu virus and produced a new disease which combined the deadliness of Ebola with the easy transmission of the flu. It might sound like the stuff of Hollywood disaster movies, but if you combine high mortality with rapid and easy transmission, then it could be goodnight humanity in no time. Imagine something so devastating starting from the blood of a bat on a small market stall somewhere, or from a piece of smoked monkey leg smuggled into France, the US, or the UK. Now, it is scary, and having written that, it obviously makes me think about the bigger picture, and here we are in the middle of a global pandemic with a strong link to conservation and the exploitation of animals. Have a read of this book to see this story and lots of others. There are cheery parts, I promise. It is a fun book in places, so have a read and let me know what you think.